Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Whiskey Jedi podcast. Yes, I'm your host, Jake Berlin, aka Qui-Gon Jake, aka the Whiskey Jedi himself. It's been a whirlwind. I have not seen anyone who's been listening to me or following me, watching if you're on YouTube right now, in quite a while. I've had a little bit of a hectic month. I've taken a little bit of a hiatus from the show, as well as a couple other things, as well as things going on the life of Qui-Gon Jake himself. A lot has happened. The biggest thing, obviously, being that I officially bought a house and I moved in and remodeled, and a lot of things have been happening in the last couple weeks, which is why I've been having to take a little bit of a break from this one. Some priorities were in line, and it's funny. Last couple weeks I have been trying to find a day to shoot, and like every day that I set aside for it, something has always come up. That's been with a lot of things, obviously, with such thing as purchasing a house and doing a lot of modeling to it after getting a key, officially moving and everything. It takes time and doesn't happen overnight. And lo and behold, it took a few weeks for me. But with that, I'm back. I'm excited. As you guys can tell, if I hadn't said anything beforehand, I got a new background behind me for the moment. That's because I'm in a new setting for the time being. It'll shift over time. Still very much in the process of unboxing a little bit and finding places for. And this spot, as far as where my recording happens, will definitely shift, and it'll become much more stable with backdrop and stuff like that. So I'm excited, and I'm excited to get back to this show. And I thoroughly enjoy this show. And a lot of people can't sit down for an hour and talk to themselves about a certain topic or in general about random things, right? Maybe if it's life things, that's easy for them, but when it's just certain topics, it's hard for them. But for me, it comes pretty simple, and I'm able to combine two great things that I thoroughly enjoy together, and I'm excited to talk about them both tonight. Again, I say tonight because I'm currently recording at night. As I mentioned, I got a lot of things going on. I found a little bit of time to shoot a late night episode, but no doubt it's going to be out the time it's supposed to be on Wednesday. So, speaking of whiskey, we have a fun one today. We have a fun bottle to back and take a sip of today. Let me go ahead and type in real quick. So you can see it right there on the left side of the screen. I have the Johnnie Walker White Walker edition of their Scotch here, blended Scotch whiskey, limited edition bottle. I've had this for a while. I've had this bottle for a while, and the reason why is because I bought it for season 8 of Game of Thrones. This is kind of the time around where I was getting into drinking a little bit more whiskey and Scotch and stuff like that. And when I first started tasting whiskey, Scotch was the one, and I've said it before on the show, Scotch is the one that was always a little bit more, not tolerable, it just tasted better to me. It was the one that went down the smoothest, right? It just kind of hit my palate easier than the rest. And so I wanted to buy the Game of Thrones limited edition one. Now, I don't have the official Fire and Ice combination set, right? The one that I want so bad. But I was able to get this limited edition one here, excuse me, and at a local store here in my area. And I wanted it for season 8. I wanted to sit back and enjoy a glass every single episode. Funny thing is, I got maybe a quarter of the way down the bottle, and I realized as each episode went on during that season, I got more and more distracted and just unamused with what was happening in that season. It's just so unfortunate, right? Because I was so excited, and I bought this specific bottle with the logo and everything on it, and it just didn't turn out the way I wanted it. So unfortunate. But I'm here now to try it and taste it, and I haven't had it in a while. It's been about 2 years since I've actually opened it. It's been sitting in the corner, kind of just sulking a little bit, as I have been for the last couple years as Game of Thrones finished. But I thought, why not? First one back in about a month, put it in the freezer for the day, pop it back open. I'm excited to taste it again and have a sip of this as we talk some Star Wars. And we have a really, really cool topic to talk about today. I do another show called A Certain Point of View. It's for a movie trivia league called the Movie Trivia Showdown. Some of you may know it, some of you may not. If you don't, I highly, highly recommend checking out if you're a movie trivia fan, if you're a wrestling fan. It's a weird explanation, I know, but it's the perfect combination between Jeopardy and wrestling. It's really fun, and I do an after show for it. And a few weeks ago, we did something incredibly special, and we hosted a ladies' appreciation night for the league. And we had about 15 different women who stopped in and talked with us on the show for over 3 hours. It was incredible, and I knew right away that the next episode of Whiskey that I did, I wanted to talk about the women of Star Wars because just as with the movie Go Down and so many other franchises out there, um, the women are pivotal. They play a pivotal part in this franchise and are arguably more important than the men. They are. They're arguably more important than the men. Now, I'm not going to be able to talk about every single one. So what I did is I mapped out five that really do mean a lot to me, and to a lot of people, it's five of the main ones, if you will, five leads, if you will. But that doesn't go without mentioning every single woman that has ever shown up on screen for the franchise. Now, before I get to listing the ones that I'm not going to officially like dive into per se, as I put up air quotes for my audio listeners, I'm going to pour a glass here, take a sip before we start. And if you've never watched this show before, first of all, thank you so much for joining me. Really, really appreciate it. And if you have, you know that what I do is I usually pop open the bottle, I pour a glass, take a sip, and then after I talk a little bit about Star Wars, I get into some details about the actual whiskey itself. Um, this time we're doing the Scotch from Johnnie Walker, and I'll do some details and descriptions on the back of the bottle, stuff like that. After I talk a little Star Wars, sorry for the on there. As I mentioned, I'm doing a little bit of a late night episode. Oh, before I actually pour, I got to show. So these have been sitting in storage for the longest time. You audio listeners aren't gonna be able to see this, but I've known about them this entire time I've done the podcast. I've never been able to get to them, but since I moved, I made it a point to grab them. I have Star Wars glasses. I have about 10 of them, whiskey glasses, that have different logos on. This one has a C-3PO logo on it. And as you can tell, my ice is already melting because it's a gigantic ice cube. It's actually a Vader ice cube. As I show it here, audio listeners, again, it's melting. So I'm going to make sure I sip some of the water that's left in here. I know that it's a gigantic ice cube for whiskey, but I was like, you know what? It's the first show back in a while. Like, what the hell? Why not do it? That may look like a hefty pour to you guys. Big ice cube, as I put up air quotes. Um, all right, let me take a sip here, and then we'll get to first woman of Star Wars that we'll talk about here. Save my thoughts. Okay, before we get to the first name, I do want to mention a number of ladies who stepped on screen. I'll just go and read the list off real quick. Rose Tico, Mon Mothma, Kira, Sabine Wren, Dr. Afra, Zori Bliss, Harrison Dula, Bo-Katan, Armor, Asajj Ventress, Captain Phasma, Shmi Skywalker, Barra Sophie, Lieutenant Connix, Admiral Holdo, Cara Dune, Ray Sloan, the countless female Jedi that pop up on screen through the prequels, and so many more females as well. I can't name them all, obviously, right? I can't name every single one of them. I want to make sure I name a bunch of them because they are just as important as the others, even though that I'm highlighting these five that I'm about to talk about right here. Now, I've gone back a couple different ways on how I want to talk about these females and discuss them. I kind of want to do a little bit differently, not save the best for last and that type of stuff. But one I do want to talk about that I rarely get to talk about and how much I appreciate this character, that is Jyn Erso. Jyn Erso of Rogue One, a Star Wars story, played by Felicity Jones. Just a brilliant, brilliant character. Absolutely incredible, right? Now, when you think of a character in the setting of Rogue One, uh, if you're just on paper, you don't typically think of a character like that, right? Um, you think of a hardened soldier or a someone in command who has to make the bold decisions for the group. And Jyn she's very much the combination of all of those pieces when it comes to a war film. Now, she obviously didn't come from the greatest of situations, right? We see the opening of the film, we see her mother fall, and I didn't mention Lyra or so in the beginning either. We see her mother fall, and and she is often hiding while her father gets taken away back to the Empire, and then Saw Gerrera finds her. Um, this character, man, we fast forward to seeing her in her adult life. You can tell she's been through ruts, right? You can tell that she's been through it all, and it makes her better. Just it makes her better. And I know I'll mention this time to or probably through. Um, Felicity Jones plays her perfectly. This character is not what she is without Felicity. I have to make sure I mention that right off the top. This character is this character because of Felicity. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. And the second thing I will say that has to do with the character is that she is the pure definition to me of what a rebel means. She didn't jump into the rebellion right away. She was kind of part of this off kilter group with Saw as they were doing things. Excuse me. She grew up a different way, but she grew up a rebellion way. That's how she grew up, and it shows through her actions, right? Snarky jabs to multiple different characters throughout the film. It's her style. We see it towards the end of the film. Inspirational speeches, something that a rebel has to have, right? I mean that's a rebel leader. I should even that has to have inspirational speech. Um, but of course, two of the biggest things that come from this character are her strength in every situation and her passion for whatever she does, right? And she got thrown into the situation by Mon Mothma and company. Um, Even in like Jeddah, right? She doesn't want to be there, but she's there doing her job. She's there doing it because she's thrown in the situation and she's just not going to not do it. So I think that her characteristics are some of the strongest in Star Wars. Period. Not just females, not just males. Um, period. And I adore the character. Right? She's strong. She's active. She's a compassionate leader. She takes over this team of Rogue One, these rogue soldiers, if you will. Um, she does a great job. She does an absolutely great job. Her actions speak Her actions speak farther than her far more than her words. I think I'm trying to say actually. Trust me, the whiskey is not getting. And some of the biggest things one of the biggest things I can mention is that she always puts herself uh, in a fight and will never give up on the situation. That kind of goes to um, her strength and passion and stepping into a situation no matter what kind of situation she's thrown into. She is constantly fighting and never giving up no matter what the case. Look at the situation on Edu with her dad, right? She jumps into the situation, the bomb that goes off, and she's still going at it. Just an absolutely brilliant character. But one of the things that definitely has to be mentioned with this character is that very much like all of the women in Star Wars, and I'm sure I'll mention this again, she is unlike many leading action heroines in film. And what I mean by that is she is not sexualized. She is not sexualized. She's the type of character. She is who she is from the beginning to the end. They don't put some kind of filter over her. They don't make her this specific type of way that they do a lot of female characters on film. Um, and it shows through. It shows through. And again, credit to Felicity Jones for playing this character absolutely brilliantly, and it just being a through and through incredible performance, and making you believe that this is how this character is. I cannot give enough credit to her. So Jyn Erso is the first one I got to mention. One of the strongest females to ever be in Star Wars, and to ever probably will be ever in Star Wars. Definitely a character I wanted to start this one off with mention because she is not mentioned enough in Star Wars. Period. And I know she is when we have female conversations, but not just a great female character. She's a great Star Wars. All right, guys. White Walker, Johnnie Walker, blended Scotch whiskey, limited edition bottle. Oh, I got to show the bottle here on my bottle. Haven't shown this yet. You can see the little guy on the front there, the White Walker, Johnnie Walker. If you and it's gone away. You freeze it. There's a little special surprise here on the bottle, and unfortunately, when I opened this, it ripped, and so I was even able to evenly rip the top off there to save it. Um, Here's the frozen part that pops up when you put it in the freezer. Winter. Obviously, a nod to season 8 of Game of Thrones there. But let's go ahead and read the back here before we get into some actual tasting and how it feels and everything. White Walker by Johnnie Walker is a blended Scotch whiskey inspired by these chill-inducing walkers. At the heart of the blend are single malts from Ardú and Clynelish. You probably hear my dog sniffing around over here. One of Scotland's most northern distilleries. This whiskey is chilled filtered to 1.5 Celsius and best served cold directly from the freezer, featuring notes of caramelized sugar and vanilla, fresh red berries with a touch of orchid fruit, develops in complexity as it warms to temperature. Yeah, like I mentioned, I took it right out of the freezer before I got here, so I'm tasting it exactly as they promised and want us to. So I'm excited about that. I know I have a little bit of a water thing going on with my ice cube because I decided to put the gigantic Darth Vader head in it. But you know what? I always pour a little bit more. All right, let's go ahead and get to our next character here. And I'm stepping away from live action for here just a second. And if you're part of this show, you've been following me, whether it's this one, Padawan Podcast, or anywhere really, um, you know that this character means a lot to me. Ahsoka Tano. Ahsoka Tano is just brilliant from start to finish. I know that she didn't start off the best of ways, right? The Clone Wars movie kind of gave a lot of people some bad taste in their mouths over this character, Snips and Sky Guy and all that type of stuff. But I think the way she has developed over the years is one of the greatest. Yes, I said this. One of the greatest improvements Star Wars has ever had in general. And there's a lot of reason why. Now, I'm going to touch on a few here. I didn't mention this up top, but I take notes for this show. So my thoughts might be a little rambled because as they pop in my head or as I'm doing my research, I kind of just jot them down. Um, Hopefully, you're all able to stay with me. But Ahsoka Tano to Star Wars means a lot. Now, this has really come to fruition a lot more over the last couple of years with Clone Wars Season 7, and of course with Rebels and her addition in there. It could definitely be added on even more with Mandalorian Season 2 coming out, and we knowing that she's going to pop in there, and then possibly down the road getting her own type of show, no matter, we don't know what that is yet. Um, but some of the biggest things here I have written down, and one of them being is that this generation of Star Wars fans, younger than me, that were born late '90s, early 2000s, that grew up with the prequels right when they were 6, 7, somewhere around there. Um, I grew up with the prequels, but I was a little older. I was about 10, 12, 14, somewhere around there. Um, they grew up with her. They saw themselves through her being a Padawan to Anakin and Obi-Wan and the whole Jedi Council. They grew up with this character just like myself in the movies grew up with Anakin. I grew up with Anakin seeing him from the pod racer in episode 1, the Padawan in episode 2, and then the turn in episode 3, right? I wasn't the same age, I was younger, but I was close enough in age to understand what was happening. And for those who were young enough to watch the Clone Wars movie and then the Clone Wars series as children, they grew up with this character because, and like I've said this before, the Clone Wars is most of the time it's through her eyes. We're watching it through Ahsoka's perspective. That was the idea behind it. Dave Filoni, her creator, and that was the whole idea behind this character. And the brilliant thing about her is that she is the adjacent of Anakin. And what I mean by that is that she is incredibly similar, right? Same stubbornness. If you look at it, whether it's Clone Wars or even moments in the prequel trilogy when I know she's not in there, but you can kind of compare. Um, there is stubbornness there, and she definitely learns that from Anakin as they grow together. And the most obvious one is the natural born abilities. Her abilities right now in canon are unmatched between everybody. She is arguably one of the greatest Jedi fighters. Period. Her style is unlike anybody else's. Obviously, using the back end of the hill, going backwards with the sabers. Um, it's truly incredible what this character has done over the years from that perspective. And like I mentioned, a lot of people have grown up with her. They've seen the bad, they've seen the good, they've seen the great, and it's only going to get better with her. So those are just a few to start. One of the biggest things that I had to mention with her is that uh, she is very much a bridge between uh, new and old Star Wars fans. What I mean by that is that for fans like me, right, who are, or let's say this, for fans who are a little older than me, 30s, maybe saw the prequels in the 80s or the originals in the 80s, maybe even for those who saw those in theaters, it's an insight to characters or character that they've known for a long time, right? She has attributes of someone like an Obi-Wan because she is very much a Padawan to both Anakin and Obi-Wan. It's not just Anakin; it's both of them. She is Obi-Wan and Anakin's Padawan. That's how it is. That's how I always see it for her. And Obi-Wan's attributes and characteristics shine through her. And older fans can see that. If you really look down and look at the character and understand what's happening, you can see that on screen. For younger fans, for newer fans, it's an insight into a Star Wars that they don't know, right? It's a different type of Star Wars, something they're not familiar with within Star Wars, right? They might have grown up with something like the prequels, or let's just say this: they might be growing up with something like the sequel trilogy. Ahsoka's story and abilities and all that type of stuff is far from what the sequel trilogy has done. It's completely different and completely new for all of them. So she is a really great combination for fans. And I know it's animation, so it's hard for a lot of people to understand why I could be talking about such an animated character like this. Until you watch Rebels and understand the story, until you watch Clone Wars and see the finish of that series, you won't understand how important her story is and these stories are overall. And I will continue to talk about them because they are just brilliant. It's some of the best Star Wars writing, period. Season 7, The Clone Wars, specifically The Siege of Mandalore, episode 9, 10, 11, and 12, is some of the best Star Wars writing, period, ever. Point blank. And she is front and center in those episodes. And so I just think that, if you have an older Star Wars fan who only watched this or understands that, showing Ahsoka stuff might be pretty cool. If you have a kid who's a new Star Wars fan, never seen something like Ahsoka, they're probably going to get pretty psyched over Ahsoka. So she is really a good bridge between the two, kind of bringing two worlds together, if you will. And I know for a fact, Dave Filoni, that was one of the reasons behind creating her. And a few others I have here, and two big ones: her mentorship and leadership as a Padawan, all the way up until she is in Rebels as Fulcrum, and the non-Jedi she is apparently, even though she's going to be a Jedi again. It's I'm not going to say it's unmatched, but it's high up there in Star Wars. Um, Season 7 again of Clone Wars really showed that to me, of how she handles the clones in that situation, and how she handles Rex in that situation, being a bit of a mentor but a friend to him, leading this squadron, but also leading him in a situation where his brothers are coming after him. Um, and we talked about this on another show of mine when we did the reviews. Um, when the clones were attacking them, she had said, "No, we're not killing them. They're not choosing to do that. We're not doing that. Set your gun to stun." You go to episode 3. What are Yoda and Obi-Wan doing? They're murdering the clones on the temple steps. Obviously, they have to. They're fighting them. Like, I get it, but all I'm saying is, she is so unique to every other mentor and leader in this galaxy world. Um, no other Jedi probably would have made that call. I can see a Qui-Gon possibly making that call, and probably some other guys in Legend and other characters. But as far as canon goes, for what we know, and just look at that Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. The same situation. What did they do? One of them didn't want to kill him because they didn't know what was happening. They didn't understand the situation, and she knew that that probably wasn't their choice. The other just went for the head. I mean, that's all I really need to say at that point, and I will make that argument till the day I die. The last thing I do want to mention here is her morals and standards as a Jedi. And we've talked about this plenty of times before, and I'll make the Obi-Wan Kenobi reference again. with the clones. That's exactly what a Jedi should be, right? That is the definition of a Jedi for me. And so I commend Dave Filoni for sticking with her and continuing to place her in situations like this. I definitely think that she is one of the brightest spots in Star Wars. Period. I can't wait to see what happens in the future. But I could not go on this type of show about women in Star Wars without talking about Tano. Not just because she's one of my favorites, but I think that um, she is truly just a very powerful and, for the lack of a better term, bright spot when it comes to women in Star Wars and Star Wars in general. All right, guys. White Walker by Johnnie Walker. A little scotch here. I'll pour a little more for you. So yeah, I mentioned on the back of the bottle here, there's definitely some flavors that pop in through on this tasting. Um, one of them being the caramelization of. You can definitely taste the sweeter flavor when you taste scotch, and that is all because of the caramelization and vanilla that pops through. It definitely has a heavy vanilla flavor, but that's what makes it taste so good. It's so unique from other whiskeys and scotches, I should say. And I think that's why I like it personally. Why it goes down a little smoother. It just fits my palate, and I understand it a little more, and it just kind of tastes good to me. But there's a really good caramelization of the sugar inside the whiskey itself. Um, the vanilla really, really pops through. But as the bottle say, which I did not, I had no idea about, but fresh red berries, which is a cool thing, and that's not something that I usually talk about on the show. So I'm glad I was able to pop this in and understand what really makes this one kick. Um, because it's one of my favorites, and I will always say this, but Scotch out of all the whiskeys, bourbon and rye and that type of stuff, it's my favorite. I do like a good bourbon. Obviously, Blanton's is my all-time favorite whiskey, but there's just something about a Scotch. Really is just something about a Scotch. So I cannot recommend this White Walker bottle. Of course, I mean, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, how can you pass up something like this? But Johnnie Walker, very very strong whiskey, very well known, and definitely worth not worst worth the price point when it comes to this bottle. And if you can get your hands on some fire and ice, oh man, I am so jealous. Not telling me because I will be so jealous. Okay, so we have three more here. I'm gonna go pretty quickly on these next two. Actually, I'll go pretty quickly on one of them because it's much more of a fresh character in our mind, and then I'll get to the big one here. The number three one that I want to talk about here is Rey Skywalker. Rey Skywalker is arguably the most debated female in Star Wars. Um, she's had the rockiest road. She's had the toughest journey, but she's also done stuff that no other character in Star Wars has ever done. And I don't think I could have gone in this conversation without mentioning her in some capacity. She was the leader, the lead, the main point, the pivotal plot of the sequel trilogy, and ultimately the focus was on her. Um, two movies were named after her: The Force Awakens, right? Rise of Skywalker is Rey. And so she is as important as anybody else in this story, and definitely some points I want to make about her. I had mentioned how rocky her journey was, right? Um, she's a nobody. She's a nobody from the Outer Rim with no family, no idea who they are, where they went, if they're ever coming back. Still believing they are, having that belief, that positivity, but never actually knowing if that was actually going to happen. Um, but this story from where it starts and kind of how it goes through, she is set up to be the hero. She is set up to be the hero of the story from the very beginning. That's clear. It's her story to lose, and I think that even though there was probably in my mind anyway, I know that, and the movie has grown on me a lot over the last couple of years as I've kind of stepped away from it a little bit and then revisited. I know a lot of people, especially close friends of mine, really enjoy the film, but the argument can be made that her arc kind of got put on pause just a tad bit during The Last Jedi. It was very much of a different style compared to what The Force Awakens is going. As the movie was, I get it, I understand it, but her arc and story kind of just shifted a little bit. It was a weird transition, and then it kind of got put back on track when Abrams stepped back in for The Rise of Skywalker. Saw what happened there. She discovers these abilities, and The Force Awakens, her journey takes her down certain paths, and she ends up finding out that she has this force that everyone keeps talking about, and she seeks guidance from Luke Skywalker and the mythical Luke Skywalker to her, right? Um, and throughout this entire story, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, she stayed true to herself. Yes, she was tempted. She was still very much figuring out who she was as a person until the very end. And then the news comes that she's actually the granddaughter of Palpatine, right? She has this evil blood in her. She's set up to be this ultimate villain with him, but she stays true to herself, who she is the entire time, and against everything, no matter what was thrown at her, no matter what she was tempted by, no matter who said what. She proved why she is not just a true hero, why she is not just an important part to this franchise, and why she is not just a very powerful female character in sci-fi, fantasy, and genre film in general, but why she's important. That's a key word, why she's important. That's not something that's used a lot. She is important. She is incredibly important. Now, you may not like the character. You may call her Mary Sue, which is just whack and not fair. But she is important to all of it. Everything about it, she is important. And so Rey is a favorite of mine. I think Daisy Ridley has played this character just absolutely brilliantly, and it's unfortunate with the flack that the sequel trilogy has gotten, because I'm afraid might have pushed her away to a point where she might not return to it later on. I would absolutely love to see a story with Rey later on down the line, 5, 10, 15 years later. But I'm afraid because of the modern day Star Wars troll, that might not be happening. We saw what John Boyega came out and said, right? He's done with Star Wars. We saw what Oscar Isaac came out and said, he's done with Star Wars. I don't want that to be the case with Rey and Daisy Ridley. I want to see her back because the character is important. She is important not just to the sequels. She is important to the prequels, the originals, Clone Wars, Rebels, possible stuff in the future, everything. And for more reasons than I've already mentioned. Some of the other ones that I have here obviously have to do with her powers. She is effing powerful. I mean, when, and the answer is never, when have we ever seen someone like a character, have we seen a character like this pull a lightsaber out of the snow like she did in The Force Awakens up against someone who's been training in the Force for years? No one. She has mastery level skills, very Anakin-esque, I might add, right? It comes easy to her. She's able to balance it very easily and learn things very quickly. And although it was a very strange road to get there, just like I mentioned with Ahsoka, incredible natural talent, incredible as a sports guy, something you just crave. She trained on and off because she didn't know who she was, thought it was what she was supposed to be, supposed to do. It led her down a dark path once in a while, but she always came back out on top. She stayed true to herself, I should say. She prevailed. As I mentioned, she did something that nobody has ever done in Star Wars. The one thing you needed to do in Star Wars. Palpatine. Defeated Palpatine. Beat him. And yes, she had some help, right? The will of the Force was there behind her. Luke and Ahsoka and Kanan and Anakin and Yoda, they were all with her. Maybe not physically, but they were with her. That's what a Jedi is, right? Exactly what a Jedi is. It's funny, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with this, but when I was doing my research, I read this online, and it's actually pretty incredible. I gotta say that. Like I said, I don't know if I agree with it, but they had mentioned how she didn't earn the Skywalker name. Skywalker name earned her. That's big. That is big. And like I said, I'm still kind of wrapping my head around that one a little bit, because that's a very big and bold statement. Skywalker name is the Skywalker name, and I will definitely say that she earned the Skywalker name, but I'm still very much trying to wrap my head around Skywalker named Earth. But I will say, closer than really, really is closer than. All right, I talked about it. Um, one of the most important, if not the most important character Star Wars has ever created. Someone that will go down in not just Star Wars but film in general as inspirational, iconic, historical. Leia Organa. How can I not talk about her during this episode, right? Like I said, I don't want to save her for last. I know that I'm getting up there on time. I'm gonna go try and go as quick as I possibly can. But Leia Organa, what can I really say? I mean, everything. Every time her name is mentioned, uh, all these emotions start flooding to you because of what this character is. And I'll never forget when we did an episode on the Panel podcast that I did for a long time. It was the week that she passed, um, and it was an incredibly emotional discussion because as Star Wars fans, growing up watching the OT trilogy, or you're born later, then you go back and watch them, and growing up with the prequels and then sequels and everything in between, it's hard to lose someone like that. She is the definition of a powerful heroine. And I've said this, and I know everybody knows this, but she is no damsel in distress. Um, she is a character that laid the groundwork for characters that follow, right? I have some notes here. As I wrote it here, I'll just say it as I wrote it. She was the first of a powerful group of women on screen, including names like Ellen Ripley, Sarah Connor. I know the list goes on. I promise. It went on for decades. But her impact on not Star Wars but film and television and just cinema in general is still being felt today. We wouldn't get a movie like Wonder Woman without Princess Leia. We wouldn't get a movie like Birds of Prey or Black Widow or Atomic Blonde or The Old Guard on Netflix with Charlize Theron if it wasn't for Carrie Fisher. Wouldn't. She means so much, not just the Star Wars community franchise, but every. Like I mentioned, she's iconic. Iconic. And I don't have to explain this one, but I do have some notes here that I do want to make sure I touch on. Her will and hope are the strongest of any character period in Star Wars. Hope is her middle name. Hope is her middle name. And that will always be the case. And that is her attribute. And nobody will ever take her away from that. Take that away from her. A powerful woman leader in charge of and protecting the lives of men. I'll even say it. Luke and Han would probably be dead without her. Luke and Han would be dead without her. Examples? Who saved Luke on Bespin? Right? Luke lost a hand against Vader, holding down a wire, could be falling to his deathbed. Leia was there. Who saved Han from carbonite? Of course, it was a group mission. But who ultimately put herself on the line to save the ones she loves? Leia was there. So yeah, Princess Leia is, and at this point, Princess Leia, General Leia, Leia Organa, Leia Skywalker. She will always be one of, if not the most important character to ever step foot in Star Wars. Period. She was the go-to person for the majority of her life, right? And we saw this from the very first moment she stepped in as a 16-year-old in Star Wars Rebels, even her novels, all the way up until her final appearance in The Rise of Skywalker. She was herself through and through, giving orders, sacrificing herself, putting her life on the line every single time. And when you say women in Star Wars or women in general in film genre, whatever it is, Leia Organa better be up for everybody. She better be up there for everybody. Star Wars would not be what it is without her. Star Wars would not be what it is without her, and honestly, the world would not be what it is without her. It showed women and young girls across the world what it looked like for a woman to be be in charge. As I mentioned, she was leading the rebellion. leading the rebellion. It's huge. So, Leia Organa, Carrie Fisher, cheers, always. A little bit of water meltage there, but ice meltage, I should say. Um, it'll never be the same without you. And it's miss Carrie every day. I couldn't imagine what these last two movies were like with her. But she made a huge impact that is will never be forgotten. All right, the last one I want to mention here before we get out of here. Someone again, just like Jin, who is shockingly not talked about enough. Like I feel like in my circles anyway. Um, I definitely feel like she is talked about within the Star Wars community, and a lot of people cosplay as her and love her, and she made an impact. But she was part of a bad story, right? Not her story specifically, but just an overall story that tainted a lot of people. That is Padme Amidala, right? The mother of Luke and Leia, and the mother of one other thing that I'll get to. Well, um, just like with Leia, I mean, what do I really need to say about Padme Amidala? Um, I mean, the first thing I say is, where do you think Leia gets it from? A duh. I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? She's courageous, like Leia. Um, but a little bit of difference here, and this is very much, I'll take that back. This is Leia as well. They're very much mirror images of each other, but Padme is courageous, right? She puts her life on the line constantly, shows constantly throughout the prequel trilogy. Um, but something that always stood out to me is her strength and her willpower. Very much like Jyn Erso in Rogue One, her willpower to never give up in any situation she's given, whether it's political or physical. We've seen her in both situations multiple times. Um, she is someone who constantly puts herself on the line for a better cause. And something that I can mention is that in her novel Queen's Shadow, that story made it known that one of the biggest fights that she ever had to go through as a queen, senator, and just a political figure was anti-slavery. She was fighting for that, and not just fighting for that, she was actively rescuing them at the same time. How many characters would you say would do that? Putting her life on the line, as high profile as a person that she is, constantly doing that. There's not very many. There really is not very many. Um, and so it's hard to do this discussion without talking. And I know I've said that about these five. I get it. They're just for Padme, and I call myself a prequel baby because I was born in the early '90s. As I mentioned, I was about 8 years old when the first one came out, and about 10 or 11, then about 14 or 15. I grew up with these movies, and I obviously had a crush on Padme. So the character means a lot to me. And Natalie Portman plays her really, really well. There's also other attributes to her, is that she is one of the most brilliant leaders you will ever find. It's very much like Leia, and I know it's, of course, there's going to be comparisons because they're mother and daughter, but what other character gives orders to Jedi like she does? What other character gives orders to clone troopers like she does? Everyone falls to her. If she says something, everyone stops and looks because she's that important. She is that special. She is that big of a character to the franchise and to the story. Not just the youngest queen ever of Naboo. Not just one of the most influential political figures. She's just, in general, important all the way around. Period. Point blank. As a senator, she fought for peace and justice constantly, and this was in the forefront in Attack of the Clones. Um, the beginning of the movie where her and Anakin first meet after 10 years of not seeing each other, and we find out that someone is trying to assassinate her, and she's like, "Okay, let him come. I need to do my job." I mean, how many stories have we seen before where that happens if someone wants to go in hiding, right? How many characters sit and are like, "Okay, you protect me. I'm going to do my job. It's not going to stop me I'm going to do my job. Pretty rare. And that, again, that just that her powerful motive that continuously puts her in those kind of situations. And as I mentioned earlier, the courage she has. The last thing I did want to mention here, and it's extremely important because a lot of people probably don't know about this, but there was a deleted scene for episode 3. I know deleted scenes aren't considered to be um, canon per se, but there's a deleted scene where she is with, after the rise of the Empire and Palpatine has defeated the Jedi, very much after that courtroom scene where famous line of "This is how liberty dies." She has a meeting with Bail Organa and Mon Mothma, and they form what is called and known as the Alliance to Restore the Republic. Now, obviously, that is what will become the rebellion. And Padme, to many, even though it's a deleted scene, to many, has been deemed the mother of the rebellion. How can that character not be important? How can that character not be important to the story, this franchise, to people in general? I just, yeah, whoever talks bad about this character, not only do I shun you, but you're just wrong. Just wrong. The mother of the rebellion. And obviously, it would eventually be taken up by her daughter, and she would lead it after the tragic passing of Padme. Right? The famous line is, "I know there's still good in him." There's good in him. Her final words. But she showed constantly through 3 movies. First of all, putting herself on the line in episode 1, going to Tatooine and seeing the town, kind of getting an idea of it by herself, putting herself on the line, and showing her true face up against the Gungans. Episode 2 comes along. I already mentioned in the beginning of the movie, she's being attacked, she's being hunted, not stopping her from doing her job. Episode 3, putting a face to fight that she has with the things that are going on. And of course, her story comes to a tragic end, but she was never not fighting for something. Never not. I mean, look how good she was with the blaster as well. How about the arena scene in episode 2? The arena scene up against the monsters, right? She's climbing the pillar. She's whipping the tiger with a chain. She's doing her thing. She's a very strong character, and someone who I don't think gets enough credit, because I know that story wasn't very good. And even though I appreciate them, I know the story has issues. I know that Natalie Portman as well has kind of stepped away from the Star Wars shadow as well. So the character had kind of taken a step back too. But Women of Star Wars, Padme Amidala always has to be in that conversation, as well as the others that I mentioned. So the 5 that I mentioned, in no particular order, not the ones that I mentioned: Ahsoka Tano, Leia Organa, Rey Skywalker, Jyn Erso, and Padme Amidala. 5 characters that mean an incredible amount to me, not just as a Star Wars fan, but in general. Conversation that I definitely wanted to have, and I had a great time doing it. But again, one more time, guys, I'll finish this off and we'll talk about this lastly. White Walker by Johnnie Walker. Game of Thrones as my ice starts to melt on the bottom. The Game of Thrones limited edition blended Scotch whiskey from Johnnie Walker. A bottle that I'll always hold on to. Super, super cool. And the whiskey is actually very brilliant. Very nice. It's very smooth. Very sweet. Especially for a Scotch. So if you've never had it, I definitely recommend it. If I got a point, nope, didn't get the pointing right. That's the bottle right there. You can find it anywhere. Johnnie Walker, anyway. I don't know about the ice version of it for Game of Thrones. I know they have the Fire Ice combo packet for the whiskeys, which are limited, of course. You'll probably have to find it online somewhere. Might be a little expensive, but if that is the case, Johnnie Walker Original is this whiskey. So I definitely recommend checking it out, tasting it. Make sure you're leaving some thoughts down below in the comments about what you think of the whiskey and the Scotch. I say whiskey in general. It is Scotch, I know that, but it is. So I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on the tasting of it. If you try it for the first time, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well. But for now, this is the Whiskey Jedi podcast, and I can't thank you guys enough for joining me. I know that I've had a little bit of a hiatus here, just with with some things going on. But I'm very excited to be back, and I will say this, a little bit of a tease. There could be some really cool things coming down the pipeline for this show. Um, I've had some friends who have talked about coming on with me and offering up themselves for an hour to talk Star Wars and drink whiskey with me, or wine or whatever their choice may be. And I'm excited about it. And there's some big names. There are some big names and some well known people that you may recognize. I'm very excited about that. But for now, my name is Jake Berlin, and you can find me at Twitter, Instagram at Qui-Gon Jake, right down there below. And the show lives here on Wednesdays, Whiskey Wednesdays here for the Whiskey Jedi podcast. As it says right there in the bottom right-hand corner, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Those are the three main ones. Those are my hubs. If you are much more of an audio listener, check me out, on Apple and Spotify. Listen to me on a bike ride, in the car, shower, whatever you're doing, working out. You can listen to the Whiskey Jedi podcast and listen to me ramble about Star Wars and taste some whiskey, as I love doing every week. So again, thank you so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. Other places you can find me other than social media. Every Tuesday and Friday, you can find me on Apocalypse Now. Apocalypse Movies is a movie podcast that I'm a part of. We do a show every Tuesday and Friday night, live on YouTube. And I mentioned the Movie Trivia Schmodown show earlier on the show. That is a certain point of view. And if you are interested in that, you can find us on Twitter at SchmodownPOV, or just type in a certain point of view on YouTube. And the logo looks like Back to the Future. That's where you'll catch us. Logo looks like Back to the Future. So for now, this is the Whiskey Jedi podcast. Again, as I've mentioned a couple times, thank you so much for joining me. And I can't wait to talk more Star Wars with you guys. But yeah, so until next week, check out Johnnie Walker and the Force Good.